never said that. I'm not mentally ill, not bipolar, schizophrenic, delusional, or, depressed. None of that's true.
You were there because of Trump, that you believe you are an alien or a higher being of some kind. Is that true? Is that a belief you hold?
Because if you look into the testimony of former Capitol Police Chief Sund, he had his emergency powers revoked by Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell prior to.
Did you know that 41% of Americans believe the 2020 election was stolen? Well, after watching David Pakman demolish this Trump rioter's arguments, that number might just go down a bit, or at least we can hope. An outrageous story that even his Viking horns can't contain has returned from our beloved furry insurrectionists. A former president's orange pants are on fire compared to Chansley's new story. At the moment, which Shaman song by QAnon is trending, there he is, belting out deep state blues. No tinfoil hats needed here. The disturbances on January 6th, according to Chansley, were a plot by the forces of evil. At the rate of a preschooler, he is pointing fingers at the FBI, Antifa, and BLM.
Your view as of today, regardless of the argument that was made in court, is that the events of January 6th were carried out by, tell me which groups it was again?
That was very clearly there from a very early stage. Prior to January 6th, what you're going to find is that largely the parties responsible.
Conflict between, clearly Trump did motivate you to be there, but also you're saying it was Antifa and the FBI.
Hold on a second. A story even crazy than his face paint is being told by our Viking cosplayer. In an effort to strip the Capitol Police Chief of his emergency powers, he is collaborating with Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi. Think of a political thriller if it lacked both excitement and reality. Step forward David Pakman, who had no weapons but facts. Chansley's bubble will burst under his feet more quickly than conspiracy theory. The fact that Pakman possesses receipts proves that he did not purchase any of the shaman's wares. In his criticism of the power struggle between Pelosi and McConnell, Pakman reveals an embarrassing reality to Chansley. He responds calmly, "I have looked over their testimony and couldn't find that," similar to a fact-checker frantically trying to decipher Chansley's claims.
Well, my previous lawyer misrepresented me in pretty much every single way.
You denounced the arguments made by your lawyer.
Well, yeah.
In court, through your lawyers, as I reviewed the records, to some degree, you made the case that you were there because of Trump. As the Q shaman or QAnon shaman, he was convicted and served some time for his role in the January 6th Trump riot.
But our eager friend isn't finished yet. Like a flat earther at a Globe convention, he's got more ideas than that. The weaponized DOJ then labels those who took part in the January 6th protests as domestic terrorists. Unsettling, isn't it?
The government is designating institutions like, say, the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers as domestic terrorist groups, or anybody for that matter that was flying into D.C.
These cases like yours were federal cases. There is no official designation of domestic terrorism by the U.S. federal government.
And there are no U.S. Marshals on the FAA, the airplanes all across the country because of this label.
He would have none of it. He provides a further information. As of 2 weeks ago, none of the individuals involved in the January 6th riots have been designated as domestic terrorists. There is no specific domestic terrorism statute. Boom. Yet another assertion put out by Chansley is not supported. Picture a master chef chopping a massive onion. After Chansley adds a layer, Pakman painstakingly removes it. Even the shaman's spaghetti can't penetrate Pakman's truth shield. Chansley spews conspiracy nuggets, but Pakman remains calm. His term for it is the set small fires conundrum. According to Pakman, Chansley's assertions are unfounded. No longer does Pakman engage in whack-a-mole. He wants Chansley to provide evidence. If you want to give me a specific case, I would be glad to look at that and give my opinion, points out.
I think it can be denied on the basis that there's no evidence for it, but it sounds like we're not necessarily.
Yeah, that's what they say about the election too.
Right. I think Joe Biden won. That's true.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you do.
The evidence cabinet belonging to Chansley is as vacant as his upper body on January 6th. Now we'll take a look at the Pakman approach to exposing QAnon frauds. It's entertaining to see how David uses his method to serve conspiracy theorists a platter of reality. Imagine this. As a Trump supporter goes on a tirade about lizard people taking over the world, Pakman sits serenely. Does his composure dwindle? No way. He allows them to corner themselves in their own rhetoric and then, bam, using evidence, he takes them on. Pakman. In this scenario, the cat has a PhD in catching mice, but the mouse confuses it for a lion. People are allowed to hang themselves with words by Pakman. Sitting there, he'll nod and mutter, "That's interesting," every once in a while. His glint is visible. His only move is to launch an attack. When he does, it's breathtaking. His ability to ask innocent inquiries that throw off their storyline is impressive. You don't have any evidence that Trump was brought here to dismantle the pedophilia ring you described. He asked QAnon Shaman, "What proof could there possibly be? Just picture someone elucidating the green hue of the sky. It's not possible." Worst part, Pakman doesn't stop at fact. His sense of humor is incisive. If you believe the conspiracy claims that vaccines contain parts of dead newborns, Pakman says, "You're proposing they put a bit of a dead infant into everyone. Someone needs to tell you that's crazy. What is your reaction, really? Don't expect a picnic." Pakman turns serious when it's necessary, similar to a teacher who has a class clown. Even though he is strict about learning, he lets the youngsters have fun. "You're changing the subject and whataboutering. Jake, please, let's be reasonable during this interview." Pakman looks very serious right now. In response to Pakman's seriousness, QAnonists wriggle. The scene is reminiscent of a child describing the consequences of the homework-eating dog destroying their school supplies. Random facts are tossed about to see what sticks. Also prepared is Pak. His term for it is the set small fires conundrum. Theorists of conspiracies are attempting to start a fire, but Pakman has evidence. The most appealing aspect, Pakman never lies. He has no intention of making anyone feel ashamed, even if they are the ones who do it. He has good intentions of enlightening people, just like when you lead a horse to water, but the horse mistakenly believes the water is a government mind control device. Truth, in Pakman's view, is paramount. Though they're funny, gotchas and viral videos aren't his cup of tea.
It was about creating a setup so that a psyop may ensue, and the weaponization of the Justice Department, the DOJ, could then be used to go after Trump and his supporters.
Why do you think that parties that supported Joe Biden would try to interfere with Joe Biden being made president?
Because of the events of January 6th, there have been multitudes, thousands of Trump supporters that have been labeled domestic terrorists.
To get to the meat of the matter, he will ignore the fluff. I would rather watch him slice through conspiracy theories than watch butter being chopped with a hot... Our beloved feline rebel would rather be known as Congressman QAnon than Viking. Yeah, you read it correctly. Mr. Horns and face paint Chansley would prefer a tie and suit over fur and fur accessory. He warmed up by assaulting the Capitol. Who knew? Washington is the site of Chansley's lofty ambitions. More untamed than his war paint, he intends to make a wide variety of changes. An easier way to vote on bills than to get fast food is his primary objective. Split the vote amongst one bill. Just stop thinking and reading. Hold on a second. There are limitations to how far our made-up politician can think. If he can't serve indefinitely, he doesn't think anyone should. Avoid getting him involved in lobbying. As bad as assaulting the Capitol is, according to Chansley, trying to influence lawmakers is much worse. I am thrilled. David Pakman. Chansley's platform is being eroded at an alarming rate by him. Pakman verifies Chansley's claims of grandeur more quickly than you can say QAnon conspiracy. It becomes worse because our aroused friend doesn't see his small legal matter as a major concern. On his path to Congress, he sees his felony record as little more than a distraction. He pointed out, "I don't think it's going to be a hindrance whatsoever. No matter how strict my diet is, I'm confident that I will be able to win a pie eating contest." Nothing from Chansley is sold by Pakman. He questions whether we want rulemaking responsibilities for someone who dressed up during an uprising, akin to entrusting the cookie jar's operation to the child who devoured every last one. Now this is scary, everyone. Chansley dances the conga line with other formerly incarcerated people in U.S. Congress. Attempts to enter politics have increased among those implicated in the January 6th disaster. Got the riot confused with the French word for resume builder. Pakman cautions against following this fad. As he sees it, we're heading downhill. The Capitol is just the next logical step. Candidate catchphrases like convicted felon will soon join the ranks of fiscal conservative and family values. Pakman finds the situation perplexing. Allowing lawbreakers to make them makes him question whether we've lost our minds. Picture a fox in a fur cap and face paint running the hen house. With more detours than a pretzel factory, our beloved horned renegade is back. The QAnon shaman, Jake Chansley, serves up enough paradoxes to confuse a politician. After the Capitol disturbance, Chansley took full responsibility for it. Does it make sense? On the other hand, he claims he is not sorry. sorry, so you better hang on to those Viking helmets. In the words of, I'm sorry I ate all the cookies, but I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Thankfully, Pakman is attempting to sort through all of this confusion. The question is, do you regret what you did on January 6th, observing a feline snatch a laser pointer? Just when Pakman believes he has Chansley under control, he makes a strange statement and then leave. What does our pet think? I don't regret anything in life, even though I've made several mistakes, because regret is far too heavy a burden to carry forward into the future. How convenient is that? The frosting is imagination and the cake is conspiracy theories, but he still wants his cake and frosting. He will not be spared by Pakman. His rapid debunking of Chansley's reasoning is as rapid as the term deep state. It was your desire that led you to go. The government is not to be blamed at this time. Excellent inquiry. When Chansley accepts responsibility, why does he point fingers at others? Any question can be answered by the horned hero. His mistakes are becoming his lessons. The author asserts you can either make a mistake and not learn from it, or you can make a mistake and learn from it. And then at that point, it's not a mistake, it's a lesson. There's a way to avoid admitting when you're wrong. It's the equivalent of telling your teacher you didn't study and then failing the test. An expert might describe this as cognitive dissonance. In order to make seemingly contradictory ideas seem reasonable, people's minds engage in mental juggling. The hero and victim in Chansley's mind is himself. He asserts that I did it, but it wasn't my fault, and I'm responsible, but I don't regret it. Chansley's prayer wheel can't keep up with it. The madness is being unraveled by Pakman. That QAnon adherents like Chansley persist in their irrational beliefs in the face of evidence is what he is demonstrating here. It's like if you're witnessing someone whose life is in space declare that the Earth is flat. Mental contortion mastery is the essence of it all. Without actually doing anything, Chansley assumes responsibility. He is recognizing mistakes without really making them, as if witnessing a magician dissect and reconstruct himself were possible. Compared to a clumsy Mexican server, our pet Chansley spills more beans. Rest assured, David Pakman is here to put this misinformation in its proper context. Fighting a Capitol stormer dressed like a Viking can look like shooting fish. No amount of nonsense will sway Pakman. He does not hesitate to deploy his arsenal of fact. Pakman doesn't merely roll his eyes in response to Chansley's assertion that the riots on January 6th were orchestrated by the deep state. He unleashes the behemoths of logic. How do you know that any of that is true? Inquires. What evidence do you have, for example, that Nancy Pelosi was involved in what happened that day?
How do you know that any of that is true? What evidence do you have, for example, that Nancy Pelosi was involved in what happened that day?
Gave the written request for National Guard to be present. They denied it because it would be bad optics and there was lack of evidence.
It's as if a teacher were to gently educate a student who had incorrectly said that the moon is cheese. However, our horned comrade is merely getting warmed up. He is more quick to invoke domestic terrorism than conspiracy theory. He would have none of it. According to him, there is no official designation of domestic terrorism by the U.S. federal government. None of the individuals involved in the January 6th riots have been designated as domestic terrorists. Yet another assertion put out by Chansley is not supported. However, the QAnon shaman has more stories to tell. Like a flat earther at a globe convention, he's got more ideas than that. When Pakman brings up the topic of vaccines that include dead fetal tissue, he adds another dose of reality. You know that's not true. Dead fetal tissue in vaccines, he explains gently. Aside from research, he claims that stem cell lines derived from fetal tissue were not used for immunizations, as if a baker had to break the news to a kid that their birthday cake was missing tooth fairy dust. On this front, Pakman shines. Chansley is reprimanded by Pakman for evading a direct question with a political-style word salad. That's just a word salad, Jake. It doesn't address the crux of the question, does it? The effect is similar to seeing a magician deftly perform a trick. When our pets play the "but what about" game, Pakman stops them faster than a rat infestation at a restaurant. Imagine that I was accused of attempted murder, he continues. It is of no importance whatsoever if a year prior someone else somewhere else also tried to kill someone. I am an expert at cutting through bulls. In this, Pakman isn't merely to debunk Chansley's claims. A sense of duty is what he seeks. Do you acknowledge that you did something wrong on that day and that you are the sole person responsible for that? Inquires. Comparable to a parent coercing a child into confessing to coloring on the walls? It's more than just entertaining how obsessed Pakman is with checking facts. It lays out strategies to counter the spread of false information in political discourse. In order to get to the bottom of conspiracy ideas, he's instructing us to use facts,